In our culture, we say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Food for thought, the movement of food and people on a global level. Join us on a transatlantic journey as we wine and dine our way through 3 continents and discover the diverse cuisines of each country and how they developed through the Columbian Exchange.
So when we talk about the Columbian Exchange, that's from the time of Christopher Columbus onward, so approximately 1500s on. And it's the exchange of plants and animals and diseases and foods between the Old World, which is Europe, Asia, and Africa, with the New World, which is primarily the Americas. In the Old World, had grains such as wheat and Asian rice and couscous for the Middle East, those kind of things. But when we look at the New World, their grain source was potatoes and corn. And so one of the things that the Columbian Exchange did was a transference and exchange of those different grains.
And then with the movement of people, you also have the movement of food. The Americas gave the Europeans and Africans a list of food that goes on almost forever.
Potatoes came from the New World, right? Originally came from the New World, and then they went to Europe. In the beginning stages in Europe, people wouldn't eat them, wouldn't eat potatoes because they thought they were weird. They thought it was the devil's eye on them. Yeah. So in 1800, Ireland got absorbed by the United Kingdom. Yeah. And they were forbidden from doing a number of things, the Irish Catholics. They couldn't eat anything except potatoes. So they're forbidden from eating anything or drinking anything that wasn't a potato. So they were very poor. And then all of a sudden the blight happened and it wiped out the potato crop. 1 million people in the next few years, 1 million Irish Catholics died, and another 1 million in that 18 months emigrated back to the United States, or to the United States.
They migrated to the United States, they migrated all over the New World, basically, and even in other places like Australia. Mm-hmm. So the Irish became one of the biggest diasporas in the world. Whenever anybody migrates, they always want a little bit of taste of home. So they always try to reproduce some of the foodways and food cultures that they left behind. And that means basically that it gives them a sense of identity, a sense of warmth, a sense of connection to their past life.
Fish. Fish is very important. They call it bacalao.
sean de sol. No pido que todos los viernes sean de fiesta.
I think so.
No?
I think so.
Well, good.
With some difference, right? Because he has now 26 years old, so it's going to change a little bit.
Lunch.
Lunch? Why?
Well, because usually I didn't have the time in the morning, so I take a glass of milk and I rush away in order to ride to the office. So, but during the milk, during the lunch, where to say, you can relax yourself a little bit during the break and enjoy more of the food.
In my opinion, dinner is the most important meal of the day. Although in Spain at midday we have important meals because they are late, between 2-3 o'clock at midday. Too late, in my opinion. So they are big meals. The most typical food meal in Spain, in my opinion, is the paella, Spanish rice with seafood and vegetables, and the Spanish omelette with potatoes, eggs, and onion. Gazpacho is a cold, fresh soup of tomato.
In places like Ghana, where it's called traditional food, and it's really actually American food that they basically adopted. So all the beans, squashes, and another one is basically, for example, if you were in Ghana, you'll notice they eat a lot of pepper. Pepper came on the ships to pick up the slaves, and they traded things like pepper for slaves, and it became part of the national food.
Mostly people take spirits before they eat. They believe that taking spirit kind of gives them the appetite to eat more.
Okay.
So some people take gin, and they have herb freak. Along with this, they have brandy, rum, iced teas.
Yeah, I just found that recently a lot of people, so they're really accustomed to having a lot of liqueurs right after you're done, you take a shot. Alright, thanks. Helps the digestive system.
Because of that. The Ghanaians migrate because of food as well today, and that's mainly because they were really excellent fishermen, and the European and Asian trawlers that come through the African coast really fished out the whole African coast of fish. It left the Ghanaians impoverished really along the coast, and they really had no other choice really except to stay and be poor or try to migrate to some other country like Europe.
Locally, a lot of families eat together. But in the average family, you realize that when food is cooked, you can go and serve yourself and eat without the waiting for the others. You know, like you all sit around a big table, dining table, and eat. It's not something that is popular among the middle class and the lower class, something like that.
Think about the Columbian Exchange and the triangular trade. European people, the first piece of it actually was the crop in the plantation, right? And so when they went to the Canary Islands or they went to the Azores and then down into these other tropical areas, they didn't at first say, gee, we need to take slaves. In fact, they would have preferred to just use the people in those areas.
After the Europeans tried the Indians, the Native Americans, and that didn't work out, they realized they needed another cheap source of labor that would function really well in the kind of heat and climate that was where you grow sugar. And so African slaves became the key labor force for that. And so you can really say African labor, the majority of African labor through the slave trade was really for sugar production.
I've always wondered if they had not had that sophistication in terms of agricultural knowledge, would we have taken them, or would you have to look somewhere else? I don't know the answer on that.
You're a good soldier, choosing your battles. Pick yourself up and dust yourself off and back in the saddle.
It was used in the New World by the Aztecs, not just as something that you would eat, but as currency and for spiritual, like ritual reasons. But when the Europeans brought that back into Europe, it was a luxury product, but they didn't use it as currency, and they didn't have the same religious rituals. So we can see what's called acculturation, where people take a product or take a ritual, if you will, and they bring it into their own thing, and they may change it, and they use the same thing, but they're going to use it for different reasons or adopt it. And
like they added more sugar to it.
Yeah, they added more sugar, it makes it taste better for us.
Our mix is rolled up mainly beef and cattle. We also export lamb. I have a product that we export a lot, especially to our neighboring countries, is dairy products. Milk, butter, yogurt, and so on. We export leather also, it's soft products of the same industries. And we are exporting wine to many countries around the world. But we are mainly a services country, and we also offer all kinds of services.
I think that the Europeans definitely brought the tradition of eating red meat, a lot of red meat, because they didn't have that before. There's definitely been I completely forgot, there's been a huge fusion of African flavor into Brazilian culture, especially in the north of Brazil, near Bahia. They mix in a lot of coconut into their food, and they do a lot of seafood as well. And that has greatly influenced Brazilian cuisine. So huge African influence. As per European influence, I mean, the Portuguese definitely had a lot of influence. But in terms of food-wise, I think that African influence has definitely played a larger role in Brazilian cuisine. think that Brazil is very exotic in the sense that it has the Amazon and a lot of indigenous from there. So we have a lot of ingredients that just come from that region, and that has been incorporated. We have European influence from Portugal, and also Italian. I think Brazil also has a little bit of Italian influence into it as well. And the African, which plays a really large role in influencing the northern region of Brazil, but also the rest of the country as well. And I think it's a really good melting pot. It is the epitome of melting pot, because it's really hard for me to put a finger on where it comes from, because it's blended in so well with each other.
Food has been a major mover of people, ideas, and cultures throughout history. The way people eat, cook, and view food varies across cultures, but we are all affected by the global exchange of food and ideas.
Food is just more of a metaphor for the kind of mixing and hybridization that occurred in almost every realm of life after the voyages of discovery and the colonialization and exchange of people, goods, food, ideas, and everything else that happened. And food is just a really good example of how that process took place. You can kind of maybe easier to trace sometimes than the mixing of people, but people mixed just as much as food did.
People may have moved the food, but the food also moved the people.